Hey guys! So you probably know that I am obsessed with the Mario RPGs, and try to find any chance to talk about them when I can, but the Switch 2 is out, and it's obviously backwards compatible with Nintendo Switch 1 games, and there are certain Mario RPGs on the Switch 1 where a lot of people were a little critical on the performance of, so I wanted to kind of look at how certain Switch 1 Mario RPGs run on the Nintendo Switch 2, because there are some things that actually work a lot better on the Switch 2, and unfortunately some things that haven't been improved. But the first game that I wanted to talk about is probably the most substantial update when running on the Nintendo Switch 2. Again, these are not updates, these are just games running on the Nintendo Switch 2. These don't have like any official like Switch 2 updates yet. I hope they get like updates to run in like 4K or 1440p at the very least, but running them on the Switch 2 does improve the performance. Mario & Luigi Brothership had some issues in certain areas with frame drops and lag, especially on Ship Shape Island later in the game. But as you can see here on the footage from one of my mutuals on Blue Sky, Romulus, it runs a lot better, the loading times are faster, and there's just less lag, and I feel like it's a consistent 30 FPS. That's the bad news there. Unfortunately, it's still 30 FPS. There's a frame cap on Mario & Luigi Brothership, so it is kind of unfortunate that it's still 30 FPS, but at the very least, it's a consistent 30 FPS. It's not dropping at all when there's a lot going on screen, so it feels much more consistent now. It feels like a lot nicer. So that is definitely great to see that Brothership feels quite a lot better, because I think Brothership is an excellent game. It just needed more powerful hardware to run on. Like, I mean, it was fine on the Switch 1, but I feel like it did need at least some optimization or like a little boost, and that's what it got on the Switch 2, so that's pretty nice. And I'm especially happy about the loading times as well, since I do feel like the loading times were kind of long when jumping into battles and everything, because there are hundreds of times you'd have to battle in the game, so it got a little annoying having to wait a little bit every time you battled. So it is nice that the loading time is definitely shorter for battling. So I am definitely happy with how Mario & Luigi Brothership runs on the Switch 2. But like I said, I do hope it gets some kind of like resolution update. And then next, I'm going to talk about Thousand Year Door. And with Thousand Year Door, it does run pretty well for the most part on Switch 1. Really, the only problem with it is that it runs in 30 FPS. That is literally the only issue. It's not even a huge issue either. The game is still absolutely incredible. My favorite game of all time. I have to reiterate that every time because I just love this game so much. But unfortunately, it's still 30 FPS on the Switch 2, since it does have a frame cap like Mario & Luigi Brothership. And this is one game that I really hope gets a 60 FPS update. I think that would be really nice if it did, and it would definitely be like pretty refreshing, I would say. It would definitely be really nice to play this excellent looking game in 60 FPS. But the good thing about the Thousand Year Door remake is that it has faster loading times. Because usually going in between certain areas, it takes like a couple seconds to load, and it pulls up like a little icon with the crystal stars in the bottom right corner. But now, it's a lot faster. Like, sometimes that little icon only shows up for like a split second. And I have some footage here that's kind of showing the difference between them, and you could see, like, it's definitely a lot faster on the Switch 2, which is nice. Even though that is a small change, it still is nice to see that the Switch 2 is, like, running these games better, like, with these faster loading times. So, all I hope for Thousand Year Door is that it gets some kind of update, like 4K, 60 FPS, maybe a little extra content if it's a Switch 2 edition. That would be pretty nice. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about is something much smaller, but still kind of interesting, and that is Paper Mario on Nintendo 64 and Nintendo Classics. That had a ton of issues back when it released on Switch Online, like back in 2021. There were like issues that crashed the game, like if you if you smacked your hammer onto a tree, the game would crash, or like used Watt in like a certain way, or like I guess died if you had Watt in battle, the game would crash. That was patched out like back in 2022. But there was one other issue that was weird about the game, and that was the pause screen being kind of like laggy, kind of slow, and I don't know, I think there was like something preventing it from like operating at like normal speed. I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was kind of slow and kind of annoying when using it on the Switch 1. But I tried it on the Switch 2, and it was substantially better. It's not perfect, it still kind of feels like a tiny bit sluggish, but it feels significantly better to the point where you won't notice it as much. So, definitely a big improvement there. So I'm glad to see that there are at least some improvements, just like running the games on the Nintendo Switch 2, not even updating them. I think that's pretty nice, though I do hope some of these Mario RPGs get either Switch 2 editions or updates. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. And anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!